It is a great honor for us today to welcome our dear friend, speaker, engineer Harry Bolner for the second time, following his great success last spring, talking to us about the journey to Central Asia. It is his characteristic to share with others his unique experience and make everybody happy. I would like to thank Sandra Kuku for introducing to us engineer Harry Bolner, following his fascinating presentation at Professor David Ben-Susan's house, where she was invited. My name is Gladys Perez Moalem. I am the coordinator of Women Learning Group, a program initiated by Rabbi Shachar Orenstein 11 years ago, and is still going strong. I welcome you all for the great honor you give us in sharing with us the wonderful information that will be poured on us today. Today, we will hear personal experience how our speaker joined the Yom Kippur War in Israel.
Stinson, the Met West is looking pretty good, and through the West Island, you're doing fine.
Please, not the dog.
Yeah, volume after.
Somebody is talking, please. Today, we will hear personal experience how our speaker joined the Yom Kippur War in Israel in 1973 when he worked in Germany. Having grown up in Israel and being trained in the Israeli army, he could not stay away when Israel was at war. Following the presentation, you are welcome to ask questions, preferably in writing. Sandra will explain how to do it. If you cannot do it, then you can raise your hand, but it's preferably if you put it in writing. I would like to mention next Wednesday, we are going to dance with Maurice Perez. It will be a very happy event also. I would like to invite now our Eshet Hayil of the year 2020, 5,781, Sandra Kuku, to give a short and interesting biography of our speaker, engineer Harry Bolner. And I would like to thank dearly our office manager, Françoise Baboulot, who is conducting everything we are doing behind the curtains. Sandra, bevakasha, bechavod.
Good morning, everybody. We all want to thank you, Gladys, because that's the least we can do. I just want to explain that to raise your hand, don't go like this because we won't know what you're doing. Either go like this, far from the screen, but the only way that works is if you go to the top of your screen, top right. There it gives you the option to chat, and you ask your question in the chat screen. That's the only way that will work, because if you raise your hand, there are so many pictures on one screen at a time that Harry won't be able to see you. But when you write your question in the chat room, definitely everybody will know that you're waiting in line for question and answer. And I'm gonna limit my questions to only one. And I'm gonna do it at the end after everybody has had their turn. Last time I thought that nobody had questions, so I kept going on and on, but obviously it wasn't the case. So without further ado, The topic of today is my 1973 Yom Kippur War story and the bridgehead crossing at the Suez Canal. Harry was born in Romania, emigrated to Israel with his parents in 1951. They settled in Old Yafo, where he attended Tabitha. Now listen to this, a Scottish school founded 1863, which happens to be the oldest school in Israel. He served in the military as an officer and participated in the Six-Day and Yom Kippur Wars, both of them. Following military service, he studied at the Technion, Haifa, where he graduated in electrical engineering. By the way, Harry told me that Zoom was invented in Israel. Subsequently, he moved to Bremen, North Germany, where he worked for Krupp Atlas as a computer engineer. In 1977, he settled in Montreal, Canada, is married to Francine, and is residing in Brossard, Quebec. His career was mainly in information technology in Montreal, but also served in Prague, Czech Republic, Florida, and Georgia in the United States. He is a member of the South Shore Jewish community, where he serves as vice president together with Honorable Jacques Saada, who is president and who we will have on Zoom later on this season. Gladys, back to you.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you very much. It's a great, great way of giving a summary of the big accomplishment of our speaker, Harry Bolner. Now I would like to invite our honorable speaker, Harry Bolner. Harry, bevakasha.
Thank you very much. Bonjour, good morning, shalom, and all the other languages of the people joining us from Italy, from Germany, from Israel, from England. I would like to thank the Spanish and Portuguese Synagogue of Montreal and the Women's Learning Group, Gladys Moalem and Sandra Kuku, for inviting me to speak today and for the beautiful poster she organized, and part of it is behind me right now. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you're all feeling well and safe until this pandemic ends. I have considerable material to show, and I hope we can keep the questions to the end. And if you join, please mute your microphones, and as Sandra mentioned, ask the questions in the chat. There's a chat button on your screen, and then you get a screen of various possible chats where you can ask the questions. I won't be able to see fingers being lifted because there are 3 screens over here. There are 58 participants right now, so I won't be able to see you all on one screen. So the chat is the best way of doing it. It gives me no pleasure to talk about war in peaceful Canada, but I view it more of a history lesson and its significance as it led to a peace between Egypt and Israel, then Jordan, and recently United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and soon Sudan, which you will see is connected to my presentation. The Yom Kippur War was undoubtedly the most difficult and costliest war of Israel since its founding. So I'll start the presentation now, and I'll go quickly. There are many pictures in the presentation, some maps, and some historical facts, but I'll try to keep them to a minimum to keep the thing rolling, okay? Just a moment. Here we go. Can you see it? Can you hear me properly?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
Excellent.
good.
We see and hear.
Yeah, so this is the picture of crossing the bridgehead on the morning of the 16th in the Suez Canal between and behind Egyptian front lines. I'll explain how we got to that. A quick background on what I'm going to present today. It's a short background to the war, war breaks out on Yom Kippur, Saturday, October the 6th, about 2 o'clock local time in Israel. I was living in Germany. I leave to join my unit in Israel. I'm first deployed to the Jordan Valley, which is strange because we had to protect Jerusalem and there was nobody there to protect it. I'm transferred to the Sinai front with my unit. And then we engage in Operation Abirei Lev, Mifta Abirei Lev in Hebrew, which means stout heart men, and crossing the Suez Canal into Egypt between two Egyptian armies and behind the front. Then we're talking about the fighting to hold on to the bridgehead until the bridges are built. And of course, the rest of the army pours through. We're enlarging the bridgehead in Egypt, north to Ismailia, south to Suez. Then there's a UN broken ceasefire, return to Germany. And then you have, of course, the Camp David Accords and Peace Treaty. I wasn't there, but it's just for historical mention. Short picture of the wars of Israel. There are many battles, but there are few big wars, and you find them here. The first, the creation of the State of Israel. In 1956, the Sinai campaign with Britain and France were involved on the Suez Canal. The Six-Day War, the 68 to 70 War of Attrition. It's a 1,000-day war called to at the Suez Canal, only in the Sinai. And there is the 1973 Yom Kippur War, which I'm talking about today. There were other battles / wars that you can see here, Lebanon and Gaza mainly, and there are other incidents in the right-hand bottom corner, but none of them were as big or important, not important, but as big and costly as the Yom Kippur War. A short preview over here is we have the events leading 1967, the Six-Day War. Abdel Nasser is president. Israel captures the West Bank, Golan Heights, Sinai, and Gaza. You know, most of you know the story. I'm just going to quickly.
Okay, bye.
Sorry? Okay, if somebody can please mute the new people joining because they joined with microphones on. Thanks. The Khartoum summit in Sudan in 1967, September, just after the war, its relationship today, they issued 3 no's, the Arab League. No peace, no recognition, and no negotiation. This is turning around today now with Sudan joining the peace treaties arranged recently in the last month. In September 70, Abdel Nasser dies from a heart attack. Sadat takes power. The economy is bad. Sadat declares he's willing to sacrifice 1 million soldiers to recover lost territory and honor. And anything to cover territory so they win their honor and can get some kind of a deal going with Israel. Hafez al-Assad in Syria only wants a military option to get the Golan back. 1968-70, the War of Attrition. September 70, or Black September, Jordanian army kicks PLO and Arafat outside into Lebanon. In 1971, the Bar-Lev line is created. 72, Sadat is rebuilding the Egyptian army with heavy Soviet help. 73, student protests erupt in Egypt. Sadat must do something. 1973, he secretly prepares for war with Syria, and there are other implications. This is how the war looked like over here at the end of the Six-Day War. The Sinai was captured. There's a border over here on the Suez Canal and the Golan Heights, and the West Bank is occupied as well as the Gaza Strip. In 1971, Bar-Lev created, he was the chief of staff, created a line of defense along the Suez Canal, and you see the positions along the Suez Canal.
Guarda com'era, c'è la carta e tutto.
Please mute yourselves.
Please mute yourselves, everybody.
Francoise, can you please mute everyone except me and Harry?
Yes, it's okay.
Thank you, Swan. Thank you.
There are 35 strong points. There are 3 roads going north-south for troop reinforcements and support, artillery road, and other names here. I won't have time to go through all of that. And the main strategy is hold and delay in case of attack for 48 hours until Israel can send more forces from mainland, from Israel, into the Sinai to help the guys. So they had 48 hours they were supposed to hang in there. And the beginning of the war there's a lot of controversy about what happened before the war in intelligence and politics between the US, Russia, Israel, and Moshe Dayan and Golda Meir were hesitating to do the war. Henry Kissinger warned not to be the first to create a preemptive strike. Kissinger and Nixon are involved. Many books were written about it. No time to discuss it over here. All I say is there's a lot of controversy because this war, some people would say, could have been avoided. In October 6, 1973, 2 p.m. approximately, Yom Kippur, the war breaks out. Syria attacks in the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights are not very deep. They attacked with 5 divisions, about 28,000 troops, 800 tanks, 600 artillery pieces. On the Golan, there are 3,000 troops, only 180 tanks and 60 artillery pieces compared to what you see above over here. And they were unprepared, totally unprepared for the war. Not in ammunition, not in troops, and not even in plans. And I've got a fellow over here who is on the call, Mayor Razi, who has a long story about the vicious campaign and attack and counterattack on the Golan Heights. In the Sinai, Egypt attacks in the Sinai with a code called Operation Badr. It's 32,000 infantry, just to give you the high numbers, 2,000 artillery pieces, and 1,350 tanks. And note that what's protecting the Sinai on the Bar-Lev line are 450 soldiers of a Jerusalem brigade in 16 positions, 219 tanks, 90 tanks, no match for what is going to happen. So the Egyptian attacks along the whole Sinai front. The Bar-Lev line includes sand dunes that were built on the water edge to make it difficult for forces to land and to climb up those sand dunes. The Egyptians found an ingenious way of overcoming it by blasting it with water cannons from the Suez Canal with heavy motors and piercing the sand with water so they can launch their bridges and cross onto the other side. And you see over here all the different positions of the attack, all the way from the north in Port Said and all the way south to Suez, with all their forces and a lot of anti-tank weaponry, which was the main support, fighting capability of Israel. There were 100,000 soldiers amassed. The assault team was equipped with anti-tank weapons, and very important, there were also anti-aircraft missiles, Soviet supplied, protecting them from the Egyptian bank, which were giving them air support so that the Israeli Air Force cannot intervene. In the first surprise attack, Yom Kippur, they're far away, about 250 kilometers from the center of Israel. Most Israeli positions were overrun and suffered great casualties and losses. Some were shot after they were captured, and some survived in hiding in the bunkers, and there were very, very many heavy losses. There's a 7th of October, an Israeli counterattack, which did not succeed. The Israeli Air Force inflicted heavy losses, but also suffered heavy losses too. It took till October 13 for the Sinai front to stabilize and to block the Egyptians from advancing. The moment they advanced away from their anti-aircraft umbrella, they got hit by the Israeli tanks, which was the main thing. The tanks battles were among the biggest since the Second World War, and they were written in history as such. You see here the Syrian front, the attack of the Syrians over here. The Golan, you have the Sea of Galilee here, the Jordan River. and the battles were extremely fierce. And for one moment, Israel, I mean, the high command in south and north and in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv thought that this could be the end of Israel as we know it, because they were so overwhelmed, and some people even called it like the end of the third temple, considering Israel as being reborn in 48 after 2,000 years, and say this is the end of Israel as we know it, completely different from what we knew in 1967. About my role, I'm actually from the artillery. I'm a battery commander. And in war, I take the position of forward fire support and liaison officer. In other words, I accompany the fighting troops, whether they're in paratroopers or they're in tanks, with fire support when required by the local commander. My rank was captain in the reserves, and I belong to the artillery battalion 343, which were light or heavy mortars, but they are individual that you can throw them out of airplanes. And I belong, the whole battalion belonged to an airborne brigade or regiment, depending if you use the British or the American acronym, 247 under Colonel Danny Matt. It was called the 55th Airborne Brigade, also Liberators of Jerusalem in 67. It was formed actually just before 67, the Six-Day War, under General Mota Gur, and in Hebrew they're called Chativat HaTzelchanim Meshachrarei Yerushalayim. The Airborne Brigade were called upon by Ariel Sharon, the general, who was in charge as a reserve commander, as a general, the 143rd Armored Division, to be located in the Sinai, and he asked for this brigade to join him in the proposal of crossing the canal. So in 6th of October, I'm living in Germany since the start of 1973. I'm working in a German firm at Grou Atlas. On Yom Kippur, I go to synagogue with a cousin. I'm in synagogue and we step out of the synagogue he's a smoker, so to smoke. So we sit in the car, we open the car radio, and we hear that Israel is attacked from Syria and Egypt, which perplexes me, and I'll explain later why on that. At the close of Yom Kippur, I contact the Israeli embassy in Bonn. We have no cell phones, no email. I have to go down to a booth, a telephone booth. I describe my position in the army. I say I want to join my unit. How can I get to Israel? And they tell me you're not a priority. Well, we break the fast, and I put my camping gear in my station wagon. I drive to Bonn, 350 kilometers away, through a heavy fog. I find myself at the embassy gate like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm told by the security guard and the intercom, I'm not needed, go home. I say, well, I'll give it another chance. You know, we're stubborn. So I pass the rest of the night sleeping in my car in the rail station, Hauptbahnhof, and next morning, I try again to go to the embassy, and the embassy tells me, go home for the third time. I tried again on the 9th of October on Tuesday, and they finally tell me, yes, I can go to Israel. So on Monday, I worked, I documented my stuff. I'm working as an engineer, building computers there. I documented my stuff. On Tuesday, when I said to go ahead, I booked my tickets, I fly to Frankfurt, and there I get to Israel. I arrive at Lud Airport in Tel Aviv. I hitchhike to my unit, which is near the airport. Being an airborne unit, it's usually around airports. There the soldiers are loading up on vehicles, the mortars, the equipment. They're not sure of their mission. They're kind of confused. Everybody's confused. The city, there are no lights on the highways. Everybody's driving without lights. And they're saying they're going to the Jordan Valley, which surprised me because we didn't hear Jordan fighting at all. I don't have a uniform, no boots, no guns, no nothing. I call my parents' cousin in Kadima, which is the village where we live, and I ask my neighbors to pick me up, and certainly not to call my parents yet, but not to shock them. Of course, there's an emotional meeting with my parents, who are totally surprised that I showed up from Germany. They didn't have no idea about that yet. And here's the kind of the Yiddish mama, the intuition. My mother ironed my uniform and my father polished my boots just in case. Well, I don't know why you need to iron a uniform and polish the boots when you're going to war, but that is what they thought they could do for me. I happen to have my pencils and paper, which I have my bag with me that I carry when I go to the unit, the army for training. So I head out next morning. In the meantime, I had really no knowledge or very little knowledge whatsoever what's going on the fronts at the same time. Right now, I'm almost like a tourist coming to Israel, and I'll be looking for my unit. In the meantime, in the Syrian front, hell is broken loose over there. They're overrun positions, many dead, tanks destroyed, whole units completely destroyed, commanders killed, alternate soldiers take command. Terrible. Egyptian front, more or less, kind of the same thing is happening, as I told you before, until about the 9th and the 10th of October. And that is when I come from Germany, and yet hell is on the Syrian and on the Egyptian fronts. So the next morning, my parents, as you see on the right over here, a neighbor took these pictures, a video, and I start hitchhiking to find my unit somewhere in the Jordan Valley. They told me where they will be approximately. I've got to mention that in Germany, in the 1967 Six-Day War, I didn't have a camera and I regretted it. And I would like to have a camera, so I bought a camera immediately after the war. And in the 73 Yom Kippur War, I came from Germany with a 35 millimeter camera and a film camera of the time, not a video camera like today. And I carried them with me kind of to document the war from my point of view. And now you'll see the pictures. I'm hitchhiking, and I was told I will be near Nebi Musa. Nebi Musa in Arabic means the prophet Moses in the Jordan Valley. It's a mosque complex whereby according to Islam's tradition, Moses is buried there. Jews say he's somewhere else. You see here goats going on the road over here, my equipment on the ground, and I'm looking for my unit around here. That's what they told me. We're near Nebi Musa. So I'm walking around the desert looking for my unit. I found my unit. This is the picture the next day. I find my unit. They're under camouflage. Nothing is happening right now. Jordan is not in the war. It's quiet. People are sleeping in the sleeping bags. Some guys got themselves a mattress from somewhere. This guy is writing a letter. Kind of quiet. It's Sukkot, and you see morning prayers, and the unit even has an Aron Kodesh, where the scrolls are for prayer. And you see down here a lineup for breakfast. Here is morning polishing up over here, shaving, and breakfast time. And breakfast is basically bread. You pick it up from the basket, tomatoes, olives, and boiled eggs. That's your breakfast, and some coffee. And then we go for training. And we, believe it or not, our equipment is very bad. We have bazookas from Second World War. This is our anti-tank weapon. And since we are artillery, we're not really very well protected in this environment. So you have to have some infantry training. And all of our soldiers actually are coming from paratrooper units. So they're used to infantry tactics. Most artillery units in those times were not so used to it. But these guys come from the paratroopers, so they're used to it. We have to fill up water, so I'm sent to go to Jericho to get a water tank for the unit. And at the same time, coming from Germany, I treat myself to a good local falafel. And then on Saturday, we get an order to go up to Central Command to Jerusalem, and who knows the area. Jericho is down below sea level, like 400 meters below sea level. Jerusalem is plus 800 meters. You have to climb up on the road. It's about 30 kilometers to Jerusalem. And driving up, you see people, soldiers digging up on both sides of the road. And as we come down in Ma'ale Adumim, the area over there, you see Jerusalem on the horizon over there. It's October, the visibility is pretty good. We pass the Temple Mount on the way to Ramallah. We're passing through East Jerusalem. And here's something strange. I arrived to the Central Command, and they know that I am arriving from Germany. And in the meantime, since I was away when the war started, another operations officer, I was operations officer by the time, I was promoted and did not know that at the time. And I was replaced by another volunteer officer, Captain Amnon Gottlieb. So I'm kind of a free iron, as you might call it technically, a free guy, not having exact position in the unit. And they assigned me to join a unit, a battalion of officers arriving from abroad who were orphaned from their units. And they told us, you guys are going to be all bunched together, all a battalion from officers showing up from the airport. And our mission is to dig foxholes on both sides of the Jericho-Jerusalem highway to stop any attempt by Jordan to join the war and attack Jerusalem. We were supposed to get bazookas and fight any tank that tries to come up the road. And we don't give up. We're supposed to live or die in that foxhole, but no tank is supposed to reach Jerusalem. But in the meantime, Central Command orders have changed, and I'm assigned to be a forward support liaison officer, joining the Airborne Brigade 247 that was deployed into the Sinai. I'm not going to that infantry battalion as was planned, and now I'm going there as a liaison officer. So we are part of 143rd Division of Arik Sharon, who plans to do something and cross the canal. And here I'm going to tell you something. Before I went to Germany, I was in training, and we did contingency plans, and one of them was crossing the Suez Canal. And one of the reasons why I came back to my unit was because I knew, because I worked on the plans of creating, of crossing the Suez Canal, the artillery fire in my area, my responsibility on the fire in my area of how to cross the canal and the artillery fire support plan. And I said, how can they do it without me being there? Of course, it's preposterous. Of course, there are other people who can do it, but I said, I've got to come back to execute the plan if that is the case. And I was so surprised that I was sent to Jordan when I came back for the crossing of the canal purpose. So here I am finally hoping to do what I planned, was planned previously. And we trained crossing a river in Israel and looking at the logistics of crossing the river behind any enemy lines and so on. So we are told we're going to go there. And sorry, I've got to go back. And you see here the situation of time. The three divisions, Adan in the north, Sharon over here, and Magen in the south. There are three main highways connecting Israel to the Suez Canal, the Gidi Pass, the Mitla Pass. These are passes famous in the 1956-67 wars. And this is the pass that Sharon used to get to this area. This was his plan. That's a division. A division is about 3 armored brigades or regiments, paratroopers and engineering corps, etc. And artillery, of course, artillery battalions. So we're heading now to the Sinai, and we go for a good feast in an Arab restaurant in Jericho to feed. This is me here. This is a fellow Hamoudi, we called him. He got a bravery distinction after the war for having saved this guy, his captain. He was a driver, that was his captain. He was wounded and he saved him during the war. Battalion commander is here. Here's a fellow called Meishi, head of intelligence, and so on. So this is the forward command group that is joining the regiment, the paratrooper regiment in the Sinai. And that's how it's typically organized. And he's a driver here too. And we have also communication folk. So we drive by the Dead Sea, going down south, from Jericho down south. We're climbing to Beersheba. We're passing by Arad. And we're in Beersheba. We have volunteers at intersections of the roads for refreshments and so on. We're going by buses. We have no equipment, no personal equipment, just buses. And if anybody could get a pickup truck, a civilian pickup truck, they took it. Here we're having, again, our refreshments. And this is Hamoudi again with my colleague, Hanan Davidson, who was wounded in the battle. Later on, I'll talk about it. We arrive in the Sinai, in one of the passes in central Sinai, and we were told the war is raging. I mean, this is no picnic. The war is raging. It's the 15th of October. It's more than a week after the war has started. Terrible things are happening. It's stabilized in Syria, but it's in the Sinai, it's still going on. And we all get to sleep here along this ridge to protect from air attacks. And then we start moving towards the canal, and there's huge traffic over here. Here's an artillery 175 millimeter driving in front of us. And you see here the line of, the snaking line of trucks going forward, everything possible. There were no tank carriers to carry artillery or tanks to the canal. They actually drove on their tracks themselves. And of course, they broke down on the side of the road. And if a tank breaks up on the road, you have to go around him in the sand. And the sand is pretty deep over here. It can get stuck too. So it was a crazy thing, just seeing all this traffic of civilian trucks, armored stuff going towards the canal, like a long road. And of course, we're all targets for Egyptian aircraft. And here we see a kind of, how do you call it? I can't say it's a garage, but it's a repair center where cannons and tracks are refitted. And it's on the side of the road. And we're driving past all of this. So what's the situation now? We have the Second Army over here in the north of the canal, spanning both sides of the canal. They advanced about 20 kilometers. They're facing Adan's division. All the Bar-Lev line was overrun over here, people dead or taken prisoner, and a few positions up north over here where the people were hiding in their bunker, and a unit was sent afterwards to recuperate, to save those guys there. In the south, there is the 3rd Egyptian Army. They're facing Magen, and Sharon is somewhere over here. We're over here in Tassa. We're organizing over here, which is about 40 kilometers from the canal, approximately, depending where you measure. And these 3 divisions are holding up to the Egyptian divisions amassed against us. By that date, October the 15th, Monday, pressure is easing on the Golan Heights. Forces can be transferred more to the Sinai. We had 270 tanks and 200 armored vehicles destroyed. The moment is right to counterattack. There's a big problem at headquarters between Sharon and his commanders and the Southern Command. Sharon wanted to counterattack, and some said he refused orders, and he attacked nevertheless. There was a plan to attack, but not at that moment. The head of Southern Command is being replaced by Bar-Lev himself, which is brought in from reserves. And Sharon is pushing the plan to cross over there, and everybody is crossing their fingers that he succeeds in doing what he's doing. I've got to mention, we have no personal protection or flak jackets like you see people today. There's no night vision equipment, infrared or other. There's lack of armored troop carriers. Some guys were sent to find troop carriers so we can cross the canal with something which is armored, more or less. We showed up really with our gun and with our backpack on us, and really we had to find vehicles to cross. Really, there was, you might say, chaos going on. And we're using American half-tracks, M2, M3, or M9, which had only 6 to 12 millimeter thick plating. And there were also what we call the Zeldas, which I think are M102 or M103 American half tracks. Here's an example of our half tracks. We are in a staging area waiting for an armored brigade in front of us to break through the Egyptian armies to get to the canal. You'll see here these colored cloth over here behind the half tracks. Every half track has a couple of colors to distinguish ourselves from the enemy. So if Israeli planes are coming in for an attack, we switch all colors at the same time. And anybody who doesn't have the right color is a candidate for being shot or hit. So this is our way, by communicating and saying switch to red or switch to yellow, and we can immediately identify ourselves to our own airplanes or even ground forces not to be hit. And this is a fellow on my half track over here with us. After 47 years, I don't remember everybody's name, so please forgive me. Here we have Israeli captured Katyusha rockets in the 67 war that are moving forward to the canal. If you see here, I don't know how you can see it in Zoom on your screen, you see tanks on the ridge over here covering us in front of us. That's the 14th Armored Brigade that is covering in front of us. We are interspersed here on both sides of the road. And then the Katyusha rockets are firing. This is from my movie. On the canal, they're trying to get, not on the water itself, but of course on the Egyptian side and on the Israeli side, to make sure that there's, make space for us to move down the road to the canal, to get to the canal. We have over here Israeli Skyhawks, American Skyhawks, but Israeli, of course, bombarding the Egyptian side of the canal. You see the smoke rising. It's also a picture taken from a movie that I made, the film I made. Here you see the tanks towing the transporter or motorized pontoons, which are going towards the canal. We're still sidelined over here, and we're seeing all this thing moving in front of us because we need them to be able to cross with the half tracks. And these are motorized pontoons, and once they're put in the water and they moved a couple of units across, they can be hooked up together to form kind of a rudimentary bridge. Monday, the 15th of October, we're getting our orders on our mission, how to cross the canal. Here's our commander, Battalion Commander Major Uri Wagman, who is also the Brigade Liaison Fire Support Officer. We have here Meishi, who was wounded later, our intelligence chief, and we have other commanding officers like myself around here. And we're getting the crossing plan of the canal and assignment to our units. The paratrooper brigade build-up on the south of us. The canal is in front of us. South of us is the 3rd Egyptian Army. North of us, the 2nd Egyptian Army. We have tanks protecting us on this road, our road to the canal. This is in the evening. And on the evening of the night, actually, of the 15th of October, Monday, Sharon crosses with about 14 vehicles the canal. First go in the scout company of our regiment in Zodiacs, Navy, and Engineering Corps, which explode mines and fences on the other side of the canal to get to the Egyptian position. The combat engineers to clear the mines, tanks and APCs of Colonel Chaim Erez penetrated 4 to 12 kilometers into mainland Egypt. Arik Sharon Divisional Headquarters crosses, and this is special. A divisional headquarters does not cross first. Arik Sharon crossed among the first, the canal, to set up on the Egyptian side. And then our brigade headquarters crossed too. Troop carriers were missing. Would you believe it? They carried the Zodiacs on top of the troop carriers. They had nothing to carry them. So they got about 15 soldiers in a small vehicle and carried the Zodiac on top of their heads. And that's how they got to the canal, among strong fire and ambushes from the Egyptian army, which were not sure what's going on, but they saw troops moving on this road here and they tried to block us going across. We crossed the next morning. Once they got the other side, we crossed the next morning. That's me, as you saw in my previous opening picture. And you see here those motorized pontoons loading up with half tracks across. And it's shuttling back and forth on the river. The Navy is running these things. Now it's our turn soon. We cross on these pontoons. That's me crossing over. My communications guy took this picture. It's a historical moment. You find the sand banks on the Egyptian side. They also had these sand banks to protect themselves from being seen as a cover, as a screen, what's going on, like we did on our side, so they can do things behind and we don't see them. We didn't have drones in those days. We had only air surveillance. And I'm passing Hanan Davidson, which took this position first. He crossed before me over here. We arrive on the Egyptian side. We dig in the eucalyptus grove, which was surprising. We arrive desert, and then you have this nice eucalyptus grove. There's trenches already built in there. They fire on the bridgehead. We get fired, not during the crossing, but later on, we get fired on. And then our first battle waits, is surprising. And there are two people in the waiting room. I don't know who it is. If somebody can let them in. Okay. An Israeli scouting unit by Commander Danziv, battalion commander, is trying to explore north towards Ismailia along the railway track and ran inadvertently into a very strong position called Serapeum. It's a code name we had, and is pinned down under fire by Egyptian units, several dead and wounded. A second reinforcement is sent, and they're pinned down too. My fellow captain, Hanan Davidson, who is artillery guy, was firing with everything he had. He had guns, he had a pistol, everything, and he got shot in the neck. His driver extracted and saved him from there. He said to leave him alone, but his driver pulled him up nevertheless. And believe it or not, he plugged the hole in the neck with one of the maps he was holding, because the blood was, well, I won't describe it. A third extraction unit is sent out, and I am supposed to join them. We noticed the problem that they had in encountering that unit, and under artillery covering fire that I gave over there, with the support of my battalion commander, fire support liaison officer, who allocated many batteries to the effort. We launched heavy fire in front of us, gave us a covering screen so we can take out the dead and wounded from the area. There was a troop carrier still on the railway tracks. We tried to tow him away with two officers standing there with a tow cable, a thick tow cable from a tank, an old Sherman. And we got shot at, I'm not sure by what, by probably an RPG or a recoilless weapon. And I remember flying up in the air in the sand, and my helmet strap got cut by one of the shrapnels, but I was unhurt, not even a scratch on me. But I remember flying in the air and, well, almost died that second over there. So this is the plan. This is a plan I got from after the war. There was a book came out, and it shows the plan of our regiment only, doesn't show the other units, about how we crossed over here. Some expanded north. Serapeum, where the attack took place, was over here. It's one of the bad battles. The other one was the Chinese farm, which is over here, another battle on the Sinai side. And then they drove down over here, all the way down to Suez and Abu Sultan, and that is the plan of 247, our regiment during the war. At night, I arrived back from that day at Serapeum, seeing the first dead soldiers and wounded, and we had about 30 of them wounded there. I tried to sleep in a tank track rut, but the shells were loud, very loud and very close, especially in the eucalyptus grove, and my morale was not very high during that night. I lost my equipment, my camera, my backpack, and everything, with the half track which went with the dead and wounded. And on top of that, fellow colleague Meshi Schreiber was wounded and evacuated in that night. So it wasn't a great day, that first Wednesday. So then I'm assigned next morning to go to the northernmost point of the bridgehead and support a paratrooper company there, which is facing an Egyptian position over here. And I'll show you later these positions. They were shaped like horseshoes, okay? And it starts low from behind and goes up towards the canal and comes down the other side, like a horseshoe. You'll see more pictures of that later on. And the position is to defend the bridgehead from the north, and that's our position with the company. From this position, I can see very well what goes on the Sinai side. Just to remind you, we're about 15, 20 kilometers behind enemy lines in Sinai. So we're actually in Egypt while they're in the Sinai, and we're watching them from the back. So it's an easy way to target them if you want to. Not that I did, but we can observe what's going on behind us over there. Battles are raging there. Lots of cars, trucks, anything you can imagine, dotting the landscape. You don't know from far away who is who. They all look the same with their khaki colors. I'm reporting to HQ on the battle on the Sinai side over here. And here we see tanks pushing forward on Thursday, going north, and you see all this different equipment over here on the side. And then we have the visit of the brigade commander, Danny Matt. He's a well-known figure in the Israeli army, from the first of the paratroopers, and Major Uri Wagman, the fire support officers over here. Danny Matt is over here, and they're sitting on top of this position that I am over here on, watching the Egyptian position, but mostly watching what goes on the Sinai side, because he's reporting, of course, to his commander, Arik Sharon, to see what's going on behind in the Sinai to help him move those forces away. Because as the forces were coming through, the Egyptians kept closing the door again on that highway. So the fighting was to open, and then they were closing it again. And they were trying to get also a secondary bridge, a sturdier bridge than the first bridge you saw, which was made up of the pontoons. It's called a floating rolls bridge. They drag it by tanks, this floating rolls bridge, and they push it into the water, and then the tanks can drive over it. It's a more permanent solution. It's a better solution. It's an Israeli invention, and there are videos on YouTube of the guys who invented it. And I took it from that thing, a YouTube by Herzl Laor, this video. Our position is quiet. You see the fire is receding over there. We find chickens over here in our unit over here. This is an Egyptian position we actually occupied. We're sitting on it. This is the Suez Canal over here, and up the north is to the left over there. Coming nighttime, I was suspicious of the quiet going on my side, on my side of the front, on the northern position. So I create an auxiliary target. In other words, I try not to shoot on the Egyptian position over here, but I shoot beside them. So first, I don't scare them to create something that is not happening. Don't try to create a battle with them. I'm just trying to improve my chances in case I get attacked. So I shoot on this position over here at the bottom of the base, and just to know that if something happens, I can immediately pull fire here, up or down close to me, in case they come across over here. And here you have fences over here, as you see at the bottom. So I try that, and truly that night, an Egyptian commando company attacks us through the evening fog. It was nothing. You could not see 10 feet away during that fog on the canal in October. I'm over here. This position was to the right of me. Remember, that's an Egyptian position. We didn't create it. and we had 3 soldiers in there. And that night they were shot up, and although all the guys in here died, they hit us with, they had night vision equipment. We had nothing. We could not see through the fog. They could see through the fog, and we got hit badly. We returned fire, and if you see over here, you see the blackened earth over here. That comes from the artillery that fired under my direction to try and save our position over here. And well, that's it. The guys over here fired with machine guns. We threw grenades down. One of my own artillery shells fell beside me because I asked close support fire on top of our position and told our guys to dig themselves in, because we were penetrated, our position was penetrated on the left in the back. None of us got hurt from our own fire, and in Hebrew it's called Eshal Motzavenu, and we succeeded in repulsing the enemy, and the artillery story says that we did it, the infantry says they did it, we probably both did it, which is the most important part. We all survived. So here, on Friday, you see the battles going further north. Egyptian MiGs are coming in to attack us, and Israeli Mirages show up and shoot them down. There were 5, 6 of them that were shot down above our head. We are about 2-3 kilometers north of the canal, but the canal got hit even more. We didn't get hit by these Mirages or helicopters. Here we have another Egyptian plane that got shot. It's falling down over here behind this position, which you see over there. And here's another one where the pilot, Egyptian pilot, escaped and he got captured. So by the 18th of October, by that weekend, the front has stabilized, and you see the Egyptians are in the Sinai on the Second Army in the north. In the Egyptian side, on the Egyptian side, we're already well entrenched. The bridgehead has been expanded over here, and we're basically 101 kilometers from Cairo, but nobody wanted to go to Cairo,
Sorry,
nor
I'm having
anybody
trouble
wanted to go
hearing
to
you.
Damascus either. In the meantime, the rolling bridge has been installed. We are relieved from our position. You see our shadows over here as I took this picture. I'm sitting over here on this half track. You see me here on top of this thing here with our communication guys and others. And Yoram Gaon shows up on Friday. The war is still going on, and where there's already music in the eucalyptus thing to improve the morale of the soldiers. And of course, everybody's happy to see the guy. He's a famous Israeli singer. And then more units are pouring through. There's a Sweetwater Canal not far from us, which provides agriculture to this area. And it's south of Ismailia. And you see already bridging equipment pouring through, tanks carrying bridges on top of them that open up. And they cross behind us over here. And this is a horseshoe. You see this position? It's a horseshoe. It goes up over here and up on the other side. And here you can have ammunition and other bunkers below over here. So this is a horseshoe position. And when we were attacked, we had Egyptian soldiers coming up the ramp over here. And we were positioned on these top positions here. And they entered our own encampment over here. So now we are starting to do a scouting of the area. We're scouting north to observe the captured areas. And here's an example of another bigger Egyptian position. We're in Egypt, remember? We're in Egypt, an Egyptian village on the thing. And you see here the horseshoe format. We're passing Egyptian villages and farmers. We're passing the Sweetwater irrigation canal. We're passing by what I suspect is a makeshift cemetery where a palm indicates where a soldier was buried, Egyptian cemetery. Always sad to see it, doesn't matter if he's the enemy. And here we're visiting another Egyptian, former Egyptian position. Our Israeli flag is already on top to point where we are, and also to demoralize Egyptian soldiers still fighting in the Sinai, that behind them, motherland Egypt has already been captured by us, so that will soften their resistance. So here we have our scouting equipment, tracks, armored carriers, has improved since the first we crossed the canal. We make a kind of a victory photo, our team together, all of us. We're all unwashed, unshaven, look pretty wild. That's me over here, just in case you didn't recognize me. This is Amnon Gottlieb, who replaced me as operations commander in the unit, and others are communications and drivers fellows. That's another forward spotter. And that's a new intelligence officer, which replaced Meshi, who was wounded. So we have a nice picture at sunset, looking towards the Sinai. We're in Egypt. By the way, Israelis called Egypt Africa. It was something you don't know special to them. We are in Africa now. We didn't use the word Egypt, we are in Africa. So everything was pointing to Africa. Here we are as north as we can go, and you see Ismailia in the distance. And this is the tomb, the monument to the unknown soldier of the First World War. The British, I guess, and the Egyptians erected that on an island in the Suez. There are two lakes, the Bitter Lake, the Grand and the Small Bitter Lake. And that's our guys. That's Uri, our commander. And he was major then, but he was Lieutenant Colonel, actually, myself over here, and other folk. And that's as far north as we got. Here, we're coming back to operational headquarters of the division. You see Moshe Dayan, who has arrived. He was defense minister, and Arik Sharon driving his own jeep. A lot of dust, a lot of movement. And here they are planning now on deciding, they're reporting, of course, to each other what's going on, and planning next moves and we're standing around listening. The Third Army by now has been completely isolated on the Egyptian side. They're surrounded, and they're candidates for being terminated as an army or negotiated. So this is the position of the Third Egyptian Army. They're surrounded on all sides by our forces, both from Egypt and the Sinai. And this is the kind of the ceasefire positions that you have. We are in Egypt. They are still on the Sinai, and negotiations are going on. The 23rd of October, I think there was a first ceasefire, and then 26th there's another ceasefire, but the Third Army here tries to break out, does not succeed. We are 101 kilometers from Cairo. Sharon's divisional headquarters, you would think it's a huge thing. He had 6 vehicles, that's all he had. He had a Jeep, he had 3-4 half tracks, and this car over here. And Barlev is arriving. Barlev is now kind of replacing Tal as head of Southern Command. And they showed up by helicopter on the right, you can't see it. And they're planning over here. This is Barlev, the gray-haired fellow. Sharon is over here. And they're planning their next moves or reporting what's going on in the area. And here's another Israeli band that shows up on our side in Egypt. And here's the movie to show you what happened. The movie that I took during the war. You've seen them individual pictures you've seen of this movie. You've seen these are the tanks in front of us as we were in the Sinai preparing to cross. That's us over here waiting behind. in our staging area, digging in the meantime. Try to dig a foxhole in sand in the desert. Have fun. Here you have those big
Pontoon.
pontoons, motorized pontoons, being dragged by the tanks. Soon Skyhawks will be coming in for the attack. Here comes one on the forces along the canal to soften up and open up the canal to us, the access to the canal. More tanks showing up with pontoons. Our Katyushas are firing over here. The unit I'm in, we haven't fired a shot yet. We were spectators in this whole thing. And this is Skyhawk still going into the attack on the canal. Our unit in front here on the ridge, protecting us and moving down. Now we're crossing the canal. It's about a 6-minute clip. We're crossing here the soldiers from the Navy, which are managing the pontoons. Our half track is landing in Egypt. We landed in Egypt. It's a big surprise. Nobody's firing at us. Big surprise too. I'm taking pictures once landed in Egypt. Here's my friend Hanan Davidson. Soon we'll see him as we're landing, as we're turning around the corner. There he is over here. And Hamoudi. I found an old abandoned place, bombed out place, and I decided I got to wash my feet. So I go in there and take some water to refresh myself. We're digging up ourselves in the eucalyptus grove. Washing your feet is a luxury in war. Here I'm already in the northern position. I'm watching already the firing, the war battle going on the Sinai side. It's quiet on my position, but over there, very strong tank against tank armored fighting. It's just north of what's called the Chinese farm, where the battle was a very heavy battle, was fought over there. And many of us, many Israeli soldiers died there. The canal, and I'm taking pictures going to the left, and you'll see the Egyptian position soon. That's north of us. That we're staring at each other, they at us, we at them. That's those guys over here. That's back again to the Sinai side. The tanks moving forward. Our tanks, they're Centurion type tanks, modified tanks with 105mm cannons. They're the longer range than the Egyptian and the Syrian tanks. They could go, I think, to 2.8 kilometers, which gave them an advantage. Some of our tanks were old Sherman, Second World War Shermans, believe it or not. Here again, I'm reporting to what's going on over there on the side. I should be wearing my equipment over here on the side. I'm not wearing it. Surprises me, but I'm supposed to. I guess it's more comfortable, but you're in war. You should be wearing your own protective equipment. The brigade HQ, which shows up over here to see what's going on. And I guess this Egyptian position, when they saw all the antennas showing up in our position, they said, uh-oh, I think they're targeting us. Let's do something before they do something to us. So that's those guys over here. That's what I shot on the ground before. Here's another brigade that comes up, paratroopers, which takes position in the agricultural fields to the left of that position, but they did not participate in that battle at night. Here again, the MiGs coming in to attack us, and they're being shot by Mirages. Here's one. It's happening all above our head. We're at this time, at this moment, we're spectators. One goes down. Another one. More fighting on the other side. Well, less. There's less. It moved up north, the fighting. Here's another one. MiG being shot down. We're thankful to the Air Force for having done that. Saved our bacon, as they say. It's different when you have a film camera. Here's another one. Different when you have a film camera as opposed to a still camera. You have all this movement, all this action that you can observe. The pilot that fell down. Okay. Okay, I gotta go to the next slide. Hello, hello, next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. So there's October 24th, a UN-sponsored meeting between Bar-Lev and Egyptian general, brokered by the UN. The Egyptian Third Army is encircled in the Sinai, and the negotiations are supposed to rescue them, not to be destroyed. That would be that was our card. You either do a peace or not peace, but a ceasefire, or else something happens to your army. I asked permission from Danny Matt and my commander Uri to be replaced. So I can go back to Germany so I don't lose my job. And he said, not before, we'll wait a couple of days after the ceasefire. By October 28th, 3 days after the ceasefire, the last one, there were many ceasefires, I received permission to leave Egypt or Africa and go back to Germany. So here I'm leaving Egypt, Africa, and I'm on Sinai ground and on my way home. I'm passing by volunteers again at the intersections in Israel. I stopped by the hospital to visit my wounded comrades. And the war was terrible, both for us and them. Morocco joined in the war with a symbolic unit. Iraq joined in the war, coming in through Syria, and they got hit badly by Israeli Air Force. Jordan were not supposed to be in the war, and somehow they were involved. Syria, they had a very bad one, and so did Egypt in terms of casualties. Israeli losses, 1,063 tanks, a lot. Armored vehicles lost, Arab losses, 2,300 tanks, aircraft destroyed, naval vessels. It was a bad one. It was a bad one. We lost almost 2,700 soldiers. It goes bad in our history, this war, especially if what people are saying today, it could have been avoided. The Israeli, basically, Egypt got what they wanted, which was to retrieve their honor, so to speak, from the 6-day war. They got the Sinai back. Jimmy Carter, Begin, and Sadat, the well-known picture. And on Yom HaZikaron, every time I remember all those soldiers and civilians who died for Israel's independence and wars behind it and after. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Harry Bolner. It was an amazing session. We learned so much. No history would have taught us what you taught us today. We never had a chance to hear something from somebody who was in the war and report every step and everything that happened. It is something we never experienced before, and you captured every little thing so beautiful. It's amazing how you are at the same time a soldier, a captain, a photographer, a journalist, and a historian. We will never forget this wonderful session. And we thank you so much for teaching us. And it's like taking us with you wherever you are going. You don't only think to save yourself, and at the same time, you are thinking of reporting to the others and sharing everything with so many people, your very special and unique experience. Thank you so much, Harry. It's an amazing, amazing session. Thank you for offering us to give us this special session after you did it in very famous places. And you thought of us to share with us the same thing. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone.
Gladys. And I'll be glad to answer the questions in the chat over here.
And I would like to announce again that we are having Maurice Perez next week, and we are going to dance. So every week is something different. And in 2 weeks, we are going to have the Honorable Tanga. So every Wednesday, we have something very special. But today is extra, extra special. Thank you so much, Harry. And thank you, Françoise, for helping us. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Now the question, please.
Sorry, can I say something?
Yes.
In
Sarit,
Hebrew,
go ahead.
English? May I speak in Hebrew, my mother tongue?
Go ahead.
אז ככה, אני האחיינית של הארי, ואני הייתי בסך הכל בת 6 כשפרצה המלחמה.
She's my niece, and she was 6 years old during the war.
And I remember when we heard that Harry is coming, Riku, in our family, his name is Riku. When we heard that Riku is coming to the war, we went to the airport to pick him up with I was with my parents, me and my brother, and my parents went in to the airport during the war with הפנסים היו מושחרים, איך אומרים, ההפעלה?
There was without lights. The cars drove without lights.
Yeah, and this, I can't forget this moment when we met him, and then we took you. I don't remember. We took you directly to your unit, I think.
Yes.
I think your parents didn't know yet.
No, they didn't know. Only when I got to Kadima, they knew.
Yeah. So maybe. So this is my memory from this war. It was very, and of course for us it was very, very scary.
It was memorable. Thank you, Sarit.
Welcome. We love you.
Thank you.
I would like to welcome my daughter, Ronit Mualem, who joined us today. I'm very proud that I have my daughter with us, Dr. Ronit Mualem. Thank you, Ronit, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got a question from Steve here in the chat. How come that Israel was caught napping when there were so many signs that Egypt was planning to war? Was that just a Mossad failure, Steve? Well, there are different theories, and some of them are conspiracy theories. Some said Mossad knew about that. Military intelligence knew about that. Mossad and military intelligence are two different organizations, and they knew about things that are happening. But there was also political implications that confused or blocked the intelligence people from doing their thing. The head of military intelligence did not act properly. Mossad said that they did give the warning. There's even a talk of a double agent, one of them being, I think it's Nasser's brother-in-law or nephew, brother-in-law, who worked for the Israelis too and gave all this information to the Israeli Mossad, but the Mossad also, you got to read about it in the internet or in books. There's a lot of information on it. The military knew about it a week before that, but didn't do anything because the chief of staff did not order the army mobilization. Again, Golda Meir did not want to have a preemptive strike. Henry Kissinger told him not to do so. That is a slide where I said it's complicated. There's different theories on it. The fact is that they were unprepared, and it was a costly war, and could have been avoided. The war could have been avoided, or the damage could have been avoided by properly mobilizing before, and maybe even stopping the Egyptians and the Syrians from attacking in the first place. But it was, it happened.
Thank you.
To answer your question, Steve.
Yeah, well, more or less, yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's too long to, and I'm not, I'd say, knowledgeable enough to be able to give you one side or the other side of the story. But it's shameful, it's true, but that's what happened. Other question we have here. How were you able to take all those pictures? Weren't they classified information? Well, I thought they were classified. That's why I didn't show that for 47 years. But since then, with the internet and everything else going on today, I found out much more detailed information on the internet. By the way, there was, after the war, the Agranat Commission, a judge called Agranat, a Supreme Court judge, and they, that's also partially answering Steve's question. There was a commission of inquiry on the war, and the commission of inquiry led to the departure of Golda Meir, of Dayan, and of the head of intelligence because of the failures. So that is a result of it. And during the war, I took those pictures when there was no fighting. Of course, when there was fighting, I couldn't take the war. But in between, you know, when other people were fighting and I'm sitting there with my camera, I stole a picture here, I took a picture there, I took the video on top of us of the airplanes trying to shoot at the canal, the crossing, and I was not being fired at, otherwise I could not have taken those pictures. And even I had debated with myself if to share this information on YouTube after this presentation, because I've never done a public presentation. I've done that in private groups, but not in public. And I left the Spanish and Portuguese synagogue to be able to. None of it is classified. All of it is old stuff. It became history. Lizette Shashua, I would like to ask, was Moshe Dayan a hero, or did he lose his grip on Yom Kippur War? He lost it in the Yom Kippur War, my opinion. Other people said so too. Of course, I remind you that when you are in a war as a soldier or a, let's call it, relatively junior officer, you know what you see in front of you, what you have right and left, but you don't know what's going on really in the war. It is the whole war. You don't see the whole picture. And there's a notion also what's called the fog of war. And the fog of war is the confusion that goes on in war. Reporting is bad. There's friendly fire. People shoot on your own forces by mistake because you mistook them for enemy. And it happened. It happens. And it's difficult to avoid. The armies try to avoid that. There are procedures. But when people are shooting at each other, it's dark at night. You don't see who is who. Mistakes happen. And in the desert, everything looks the same. So it's difficult. And the same fog of war happened at senior command, at the general's level. the generals did not have an exact. One general declared that he captured the position when she didn't really capture. He thought he captured, and then there were enemy behind it. So the errors are there, and there's bad information flowing, and you have to get down to the real things that's going on.
Can I add something, please?
Yes, go ahead, Lisette. Yes.
When we were in Israel, they were showing us Jerusalem, and they actually blamed Moshe Dayan even for the 6-Day War, saying that he insisted Tel Aviv because he had a girlfriend there, and he stopped it short. And if we had continued, we wouldn't have had all those problems. Do you know if that has any foundation to it?
No, I don't know. I really don't know. The answer is I really don't know. I won't believe everything that's written about it. Basically, Moshe Dayan, the 6-Day War, he's considered the hero, whether true or not, but the popular image, he's the hero. In the 6-Day War, he's a hero. In 1973 war, he did not make decisions when he should have, could have. The reports are from the meetings, from different reporting after the war. There are books written about it, and I don't know, is my camera on? Do you see me? Or did my camera go off?
It went off.
There, I'm back again. I don't know what happened. There are different
There you
books
are.
written on the war. One of them that I recommend is Uri Bar Yosef, The Watchman Fell Asleep. Okay? There's talk about how he did not make decisions when he could have. He was silent, and he kind of passed the buck to other people, which was not the way you expected Dayan to behave or the chief of staff to behave, especially a guy who was a commander of the army in the past. Just a second, Sandra, I saw your finger, but I got to see other questions over here. How come S&P Synagogue? How come that Israel was caught napping when there were so many signs that Egypt was planning for war? Was it a Mossad failure? Oh, Steve, okay, he answered the questions. Questions, pictures. Yes, Lisette. I got a video by an older Omar Sharif saying that Sadat called him and asked him to call Begin, tell him that he was wanted to visit Israel. Begin was filled and answered that he would personally receive Sadat like Jesus Christ. I don't know. I don't know. If Omar Sharif says that, let's believe Omar Sharif, but I don't know how true it is.
May I make a comment?
Yes, and yeah, go ahead, Sandra. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Just a second, Steve. Sandra? Go ahead, Sandra.
Kissinger, what was his influence in all of this? Because I think he's responsible for a lot of delay.
Very good.
Well, yes and no. My opinion, Kissinger was foreign secretary, was working with Nixon, of course. He had the Russians on the other side, and the Russians were supporting Egypt. They had their own political military interest to prove that Russia and Egyptian strategy and equipment is superior to the Western. And that's always when people give arms to other people to prove that their arms are better than the other ones. And Kissinger wanted to kind of to protect the United States and Israel from being blamed for a first attack. But once the firing started, Kissinger and Nixon did support by providing a lot of arms and ammunition to replenish the ammunition that was lost during the war in Israel, because there was tons and tons of ammunition was shot in the Golan and in the Sinai, and Israel needed resupply. And the Americans did provide this resupply, and of course blocked politically the Russians in any other attempts of hijinks that they tried to do. But in the beginning, it was there is a conspiracy theory saying that the three parties agreed to let Egypt attack first, occupy 15, 20 kilometers. That's a theory. I don't go for that at all, but it's a theory written. to let them capture 15, 20 kilometers. Israel will be forced to make peace. Egypt got their honor back, and everybody goes and lives happily ever after with a peace agreement. I don't know if it's true or not. Let history tell us what is true. There's a lot of written about it on the internet, but they say that Golda Meir flew to Washington to discuss such a scenario with Kissinger and Nixon. I'm not sure what was spoken there. We need to have historians, both American and Israeli and others, write about it.
Okay.
Somebody else, Steve. Yes, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, just a comment. If I remember correctly, early 1973, there was an article, I believe it was in the Time magazine, a discussion with Moshe Dayan. He was asked, what do you think, will there be another war with the Arabs after the 6-Day War? He said, he was almost laughing. He said, we beat them so heavily, I don't think there'll be another war with the Arabs in my lifetime.
Yes,
He was so sure that
yes.
it's not going to happen. So maybe this is one of the reasons he just fell asleep on the wheel.
Possibly. And it's very much so that the whole Israeli army and population thought that we were unbeatable. There was a kind of a self-confidence and arrogance that came from the 6-Day War. We beat all those countries in 6 days. Come on, who's going to try anything on us again? And that was a big mistake. And that proliferated in the army too, that they left only 450 soldiers on the Suez Canal, thinking they will not dare. And the Egyptians camouflaged their attack as another exercise that they were doing on the Egyptian side. They were doing constant exercise. So Israel said, oh, it's another exercise they're doing. And they said they will not dare to attack us. This sentiment existed even a week before the war. This sentiment existed. And they were under camouflage, and then they took out the camouflage, crossed the canal, surprised us in Yom Kippur, and everybody said, oh my goodness, look what happened. And that is one of the problems, this overconfidence that the army had because of the 6-Day War. Not just politicians, generals, everybody had that overconfidence. The soldiers themselves, they never thought it could happen.
Hello. Hello. Can I mention something?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. In 73, I was a student in Israel, and I was in Netanya in that time. And in Erev Yom Kippur, I was working in Netanya, and I saw a lot of jeeps going around and taking soldiers, officers, okay, high officers, okay. This is before the war, okay.
Yes.
And during the night, I heard a lot of airplane going down south, okay.
Yes.
And so I believe that the Israelis thought that the Air Force would contain, okay, the first attack until the army joined the war. Okay, so
Yes.
they plan, I believe they plan according to the result of the 67 war, that the Air Force will do a bigger job than what they did in 73. So, but the Arabs, okay, with the support of the Soviets, had the SAM, okay, the anti-aircraft missiles, and all that plan, okay, got destroyed. So that's why I believe, okay, the war got dragged and they lost so many soldiers because they counted too much on the Air Force.
It was too little too late. Yeah.
What?
You're right.
Well, they knew about the war. They knew about the war, and they were prepared, but they prepared only the Air Force.
Yes, but the Air Force encountered the SAMs, and that was their problem. They were prepared for them, and the Air Force.
Yes, they were prepared. The Arabs were prepared for them.
Yes.
Yeah, the Soviet prepared the Arabs for that.
Exactly.
May I add a comment, please?
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, now the situation is not that clear, no matter how we look at it. But we have to read between the lines of some of the statements of the politician at that time. At that time, Kissinger made a sort of comment. The situation is hard and we have to soften it. Now, what does that mean to soften it? It means to push Israel down by breaking the morale of the Israelis and put them before the fact that they are not invincible. Now, the whole truth is that nobody knows how the American discouraged Israel to start a war. It was a sort of a puzzle. Some said they told Golda don't to initiate any war because the Egyptians are just doing an exercise.
Yeah.
And this way, the Egyptians outfoxed the Israelis, and the Israelis paid the price.
Yes.
When the Americans saw that Israelis are losing, they started sending them ammunition by
Right.
the tons. This is what I want to say.
Right. It's right. Right. But one of the heroes of the war that nobody talks about, and I found out much later, because as I mentioned, in war you only know basically what you saw on my camera. I mean, that's what I saw during the war. Right and left, I didn't know what's going on in politics, in the high-level intelligence, and so on. And one of them was the Navy. The Navy did some fantastic work. They knocked off missile boats in the port of Latakia in Syria, and Egyptian boats. That was the largest, the most significant battle of the Navy. All other forces lost in here. The artillery became very much revered in this war. They discovered more the artillery in this war than in the '67 war, and more than in '56. And the tanks, the armored brigades, as I mentioned, that was one of the greatest battles of the war. One of them in the Emek Baha, which is called the Valley of Tears in the Golan, where about a few Israeli tanks knocked out hundreds of Syrian tanks in an ambush. And of course, in the Sinai, where you had those 3 tank divisions, armored divisions, which fought the Egyptians. After that, they blocked the Egyptians by the 10th of October, where they succeeded in destroying the Egyptian armor once the Air Force took out, and the infantry. Paratroopers from our unit, which crossed into Egypt, attacked missile sites, SAM missile sites, Egyptian SAM missile sites, and took them out of commission so that the Air Force can function properly. And that helped too. So once the Air Force got into action, the Egypt and the armored brigades, the Egyptian positions softened. And the last nail in the coffin was when we crossed into Egypt behind the 2nd and 3rd Army. That got them all rattled and got to the ceasefire. Any other questions?
Thank you for excellent presentation.
Thank you, thank you. What's your name, please? All I see is Lydia's iPad.
Yeah, my name is Sami Surani.
Nice to meet you,
You
Sami.
know,
Thank you.
Harry, our president, Edmond Elbaz, calls Sami our Moses. He's our history scholar. He's,
I see, I see.
his mind is bigger than Encyclopedia Britannica or Judaica.
Thank you.
So
Thank
that
you.
was a real compliment for you.
Thank you, Sandra.
I have a question, but only after everything else was asked.
Well, go ahead. I don't see any fingers raised over here. Anybody?
Thank
No?
you. When I was in Iran working for a Belgian company that was building together with Grou, the German company which
Yes.
you worked for, they were building finishing up the copper refinery that the Americans had started, but since they were kicked out of Iran, the Europeans came in to finish. So it's just a comment I'm making. It brings back memories. We were so behind the Belgians because the National Iranian Copper Industries Company kept on, they didn't unblock the documents from the bank so that the materiel that came from Europe, Antwerp and everywhere, could be unblocked in the customs in the port at the Persian Gulf. So what I did was I'm tooting my own horn here, forgive me, but it just brings back such memories of, I created a system where we didn't have computers then, and we did everything by telex with Europe. But I did a system where, and Krupp adopted that too, because we were a consortium, Meshim and Krupp, that we filed every ship, every boat, every plane load of equipment in one file, so that all the correspondence, bank doc, everything relating to that is there. So you don't have to go chronologically through a 300 folder filing system to see to which request they didn't answer, and the material is in the port of entry, accumulating storage fees.
Sandra?
So what was your group involvement?
Well, I'll tell you just on the war issue. When I informed my boss I'm going to Israel for the war, I couldn't explain the fact that I'm doing it as a volunteer. They wouldn't understand that. Germany's sentiment in 1973 was very much, after the Second World War, very much anti-war and so on. And I said, well, I have to go back to my unit without explaining too much. They said, listen, we are prepared, and they took me to human resources. We are prepared to give you asylum, political asylum. I said, no, I don't want political asylum. I have to go back to my unit. They were very, very nice about that. And I was afraid. I ran back to Germany once the ceasefire happened, that in order to get my job back, because I thought that I was hanging by a thread with my job. Where do you leave your work and disappear for 1 month to war and like that? And they understood that. They reluctantly let me go. And my unit, I found out 40 years after the war, because I didn't go back. I never met my unit since the war. I'd never met my unit.
Wow.
I found out much later that they were there till February, stuck in Egypt, in Suez over there, until finally they retreated from the Sinai. They were 6 months, probably even longer, in uniform. And some of them were engineers, doctors, lawyers, all kind of stuff. And they were stuck in the army there in the middle of the desert, eating sand and whatever they found over there. And I was back in Germany enjoying life at the time, not knowing that they were still stuck in the Sinai and in Egypt at the time.
But Harry, the war was won because of people like you. And another thing I wanted to say, Krupp is a German company that was a huge, it grew into a huge thing. They were the ones who built the tanks for the Germans in World War II. And I read a book about it, which says that among one of the things interesting in the book is that it was a Jewish engineer who invented a system for anti-rust of all that metal. And eventually even though what he did was so crucial to the German war effort, he wound up in concentration camp and he ended up dying there. Just historical trivia.
The unit of Krupp that I worked for was the only electronic firm in the Krupp concern, which were 50 mostly steel companies. And the company was called Atlas, was not called Krupp before that. And Atlas Elektronik in Bremen was a maritime electronics company, and they created sonar systems for the U-boat submarines during the Second World War.
And
Krupp
just
bought
very
them later on.
Sorry, just very quickly, Krupp had, with the Shah of Iran, the former Shah, they made, the Shah had a lot of shares in Krupp. And when the Ayatollahs took over, they had a lot. So Germany wanted to buy all the shares of the Iranians to kick them out of the whole enterprise.
Thank you, Sandra. I think many people are still on the line over here. We can do it offline if it's not on the subject of the war, because other people want to go for lunch or something, or maybe supper, depending which country you're in. Thank you very much, Gladys, Sandra.
We need to finalize, because also our office manager, Françoise, it's so nice of her to give us more than 2 hours, and we enjoyed it so much. I would like to thank our wonderful speaker, Harry Bolner, for this memorable session. We learned so much, and we saw each other from all over the world. It's like United Nations. You gathered all of us together, Harry. That's a wonderful thing. And even you had friends from schools here together with.
Yes, we haven't seen each other in 50
and
years.
I have my daughter, Ronit Mualem. I'm happy to see her here joining us. And my sister from Israel, my nephew from Israel.
Wonderful.
And my friends, Orit, and from all over the world, they came to join us. But the main thing I would like to say that we are so happy and thanks God that you are alive. You are so courageous. You went through all these things and you didn't think about yourself, that you were in the most dangerous thing you were doing, and all you could think is to take picture and bring everything to everybody to share it with you. We would have never had a chance to see such a thing. We only read history, or we see film, we read video, but we could never be exposed to such a thing, that somebody in your position and your capacity to capture all the very important things. So thank you very much, Harry.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, my family.
Everybody.
But a very interesting,
Everywhere.
very interesting session.
Thank you, Françoise.
Bye, Sarit. Bye, Sarina.
Can I ask
Rami.
you?
Everybody. Okay. Bye, my lovely ones. We'll see you next week. Next week we will dance.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Gladys.
Thank you, Gladys. Thank you, Sandra.
Shalom Lekulam. Bonjour, Yvon. Merci.
Thank you. Thank
Harry,
you,
Harry, you are the best par excellence journalist, and the fake media must learn from you.
Wow. That's a big statement.
Yes, I approve that. I confirm. Yes.
Can we ask a question, please? Is there a way
Of course.
No,
Of course, go ahead. No, ask.
The floating bridge,
Yes.
what exactly can be done when in the middle of the desert, they bring such tanks and put it in the water right away on the floating bridge? Please.
Well, the bridge is a floating bridge is rollers. They're made of cylinders, rollers, and they're dragged by tanks. The problem is the roads were so bad, and what I didn't talk about, the traffic jams during the war to get to the bridge, because there's one road leading there, and you have to move everybody away, and you have to decide priority for the bridge to go through. And everybody thinks he's got priority. I got to get there because of I got to fight. I got to go there because I got to cross. And the other guys are trying to cross with the bridge. Their commanders trying to cross. The problem was a lot of traffic jams. And during this whole time, the Egyptian army was counterattacking, trying to squeeze them off the road. So that was a problem, getting bridges and tanks onto the crossing point and the bridgehead. And the other part was hold on to the bridgehead. Otherwise, there's nothing to cross over if you don't have a bridge. If you don't have people on the other side, then you're stuck. You have to have the other side steadfast while you're fighting to get to the canal and cross. So it's a whole logistical problem and a war problem, because you have to fight the enemy while you're moving with thousands of vehicles towards the canal.
Do they know the deepest of the water when they put that bridge?
Yes, yes, they knew all that. We know the depth of the water and so on. There was another danger. I mean, the presentation, you may have felt long, but there's so much more to say. During the building of the bridge, there were rumors or intelligence rumors that Egyptian frogmen are trying to come and to sabotage the bridge from through the water, coming through the water, swimming. So they put soldiers from a unit on the bridge, throwing every few minutes grenades into the water. That's how rudimentary it was. And then came Egyptian helicopters and airplanes to attack the bridge. And those guys died on the bridge. They were shot. Those guys throwing grenades in the water, trying to protect probably frogmen coming to sabotage the bridge. That was really, really improvised solutions of unbelievable to think in war. Today you have ultrasonic sensors, you have drones, but in those days, what do you do to protect the bridge underwater in the middle of a war? Our commander put soldiers on the bridge and said, here's grenades, throw every couple of minutes a grenade in the water, and maybe it'll stop the frogmen. Example. I don't want to keep it any longer, sorry.
No, it's very nice.
No, we want to hear you.
A very nice explanation.
Yes, but Françoise wants to leave.
Oh.
Okay.
We stay.
Merci, Françoise.
Merci beaucoup.
Well, to me, unless you want to take the lead, Harry.
Merci tout le monde.
Thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
logging
Harry.
off. Bye. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. We appreciate it so much that you offered.